Live on Capitol Hill. We also want to get to some breaking news now. Hillary Clinton lawyer Michael Sussmann not guilty in his trial. That today was the first full day of deliberations. Bianca, the jury getting the case after some deliberation Friday at 9 a.m. this morning, taking just a few hours to reach this verdict. Again, Michael Sussmann found not guilty of lying to the FBI. You know, one of the key issues here was that text message, Bianca, and whether or not he actually sent that or whether that was going to be used as evidence. The judge ruling late last week that text message, which seemed to implicate Sussmann directly, claiming not to be working for the Clinton campaign when he was, that was not allowed to be entered in as evidence. Let's welcome in now South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace. She's a member of the House Oversight Committee to get more on this. Congresswoman Mace, unfortunately, this is the verdict that a lot of people were expecting. There were questions about the jury pool and whether or not John Durham and his prosecutors could get a fair day in court in Washington, D.C. Wanted to get your reaction to the verdict here.
And it doesn't feel like they got a fair day in court. And it feels like that no one is ever held accountable in this country for breaking the law, particularly in the highest echelons of campaigns and the federal government. And it's inexcusable, really. And the frustration of the American people, I'm sure, will be palpable with this verdict. But we just want anyone to be held accountable for the laws that they're breaking.
You know, this was the first piece in sort of John Durham's kind of unfolding of what, many say he laid out was the connections here. You had former campaign manager Robbie Mook on the stand, Congresswoman, talking about that this was run past Hillary Clinton, that there would be information about a back channel between Trump and Alpha Bank that has been debunked, but that she okayed to float it to a reporter. And while this is a not guilty verdict for Sussmann today, are you hopeful that perhaps with the subpoenas and what John Durham was able to sort of kind of start unfolding could lead to other investigations, could lead to more indictments?
I hope that it doesn't end here today. And I hope that in the next case or in the future, they will allow every single piece of evidence entered into the record. The American people deserve to have the right to know what did and did not happen. Hillary Clinton, again, never charged with anything. You look at Benghazi, look at the private server she had classified information on in her bathroom in her house. I mean, come on. I mean, this is one of the reasons that the American people are so frustrated with this country, because we never hold people, especially our leadership, when they break the law, accountable.
Again, the breaking news we're getting just a few moments ago, Michael Sussmann, the jury finding him not guilty of lying to the FBI despite a lot of evidence to the contrary. But as you indicated, Congresswoman, we'll see what comes next. I know this is a key focus, too, for Republican members of the House Oversight Committee. Should you win re-election and Republicans take back control, what does Congress do from here as it relates to this?
Well, the Oversight Committee, we have subpoena power, and I hope like hell, if you don't show up when we do subpoena you, that we're going to hold you in contempt. There is a lot to be investigated from the Biden administration. He has literally been on the wrong side of every single issue. There are a number of, whether it's immigration or Afghanistan, there are so many things that we need to investigate. We had one hearing on oversight last year on the border. And guess which border it was about? It was about the northern border, where there are less than 10,000 apprehensions a year, not the southern border, where every day thousands of illegal immigrants are coming across with drugs and sex trafficking and human trafficking, you name it.
We see the cartels coming across the border. Meanwhile, we hear from Joe Biden and others. They want legal gun owners to unilaterally disarm here. We had 30 people shot in Chicago, 5 killed over the weekend, 40 shot in Philadelphia, about a dozen killed there. And those numbers are not all that different from other weekends where we see spikes of violence in these cities. How come Congress seems to only talk about gun control after these mass school shootings? It seems like if representatives were serious about this, they would be more persistent and push for this stuff every single weekend, like especially after when we saw this last weekend.
Let no crisis go to waste, I think, is the motto. And you saw Beto O'Rourke disgustingly use a tragedy in Uvalde for his political advantage and his political gain. And as you rightly pointed out, in Chicago, where they have gun control, where you are not allowed to bring in more than a 9mm pistol into the city, they had 30 shootings last weekend. The weekend before that, 27 people were shot. And so it does not work. And rather than look at the bare minimum, for example, having mental health counselors in every school, that's something every person in this country could agree with. Having an armed security guard in every school, hardening our schools for protection, whether it's bulletproof doors or bulletproof glass, looking at a threat matrix. This kid in Uvalde was literally shooting strangers with a BB gun. Why was he never charged with a crime? Why were parents being arrested on the site at Robb Elementary School who were merely trying to go into the school and rescue their kids? Why was this gunman allowed to be in the school alive, shooting kids for over an hour after he spent 12 minutes outside shooting back and forth with the police? And so when you look at this, you sort of scratch your head. And a bill that I'm on at the federal level is an active shooter alert that would work like an Amber Alert. There's another piece of legislation that I'm on. Did you know that the federal law enforcement agencies and state law and local agencies, when they communicate about criminals and the crimes that they're committing, they're only allowed to use a fax machine? This is 2022. This information about criminals who are committing crimes should be readily available to every law enforcement agency. It's far past time. These aren't controversial issues. It doesn't touch a law-abiding citizen's rights to own a gun.
Well, we saw with the Charleston shooting there how things slip through the cracks. The information doesn't always get reported. It seems like we need to do a good job of enforcing the laws we already have on the books.
Right, correct.
That's a good place to start. Congresswoman, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.